If you are not talking about economic empowerment, don't talk to me about God. Because the crime in our community...
He has a very, 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 very small God.
I'm older than Jesus. I'm older than Muhammad. I'm older than Abraham. I'm older than Noah. When I existed, they wasn't even born.
What's good? How y'all doing? How's your mama? How's your daddy? How your little sisters? How's your dog? How's your fish? How all y'all doing? I'm glad that you're here. I have another Pastor Reacts video for you guys. We're going to be reacting to Dr. Umar Johnson talking about the Christian church and why black people do not like Christianity. This is something that really irks my nerves because if it's not slavery, if it's not irrelevance, if it's not wokeness, if it's not racism, black people are finding some excuse not to be going to church, talking about they love Jesus. But that's kind of what I'm here. That's what I do. That's what I like to talk about. It's what I like to review. So let's see what he's talking about.
No, I agree with you. Early black Christianity, especially coming here out of Philadelphia, when you look at Absalom Jones, you look at Richard Allen, who protested against white church because they were not allowed to pray in the pulpit with white people. They were relegated to the back. So they walked out.
So the first African Methodist Episcopal Church was created because the two founders, I forgot their names. I'm sorry, Dr. Eric Mason, don't get mad at me. But they were kicked out. Like they were going to pray and a white person kicked them out and said, you can't pray here with us. And this was in the early 1900s. And that's the beginning of the black church. So the beginning of the black church is because of racism. We were kicked out. We were kicked out of worshiping with other Christians.
Out of that came the African Methodist Episcopal Church, which is the largest black independent, and one of the oldest. There's debate there because there's about 3 different churches who claim to be the oldest. Just like we got 3 different HBCUs in Wilberforce, Cheney, and Lincoln who claim to be the oldest, but they're the oldest, right? Yeah. So when you look at that, AME coming out of that protest, had I been back then, I may have been an AME, not for purposes of Jesus, but for purposes that you're fighting against white supremacy. I look at Absalom Jones.
Well, I'm glad you don't join a church. If you're gonna join a church, not for the purposes of Jesus, that's a reason to kick you out. That's a reason to send you away. If you have other ulterior motives, you're not here for Jesus, then you shouldn't be in the church. But there is space to be here for Jesus, represent what Jesus represented, to fight for the faith and for racial equality.
Churches do care.
Yeah.
Churches do a lot.
Yeah.
But with the church being the oldest political bulwark in the black community, it's not just about caring about people. It's not just about doing a lot. You have to attack the 5 major problems that black people have, which are
talk to me,
miseducation, mass incarceration, gentrification, police genocide, and access to wealth, also known as economic apartheid. The black church must lend itself directly to challenging those 5 major problems and or creating the 6 major institutions that we need. Schools for our children, hospitals to take care of our people, supermarkets to feed our people, manufacturing sector to employ our people, distribution to give them the needs that they want, and the banks to.
So, okay. Myself, as well as all the pastors, all the pastors, no matter what race, but especially the black pastors that I work with, would have no issue with what he just said, like at all. And all of us in the church plant that we're building right now, we are dedicated to doing that. Now, you can't just say that you care. You have to act like it too. Just like you can't just say that you love Jesus when none of your actions indicate that you love Jesus. So yeah, that's empty. Faith without works is dead. This is rarely applicable to what James was talking about, where it's like if you want to feed somebody and you pray for them and you care about them and you want them to have something to eat, get them something to eat. Don't just pray for them and have faith that God is going to feed them. Like, give them something to eat. But here's the issue with Dr. Umar Johnson. It's all about black people. Like, that's the issue. He's only about black people. We should not only exist to serve black people. As a church, as a body of Christ, we need to serve people, the community. So a church should look like the community that surrounds it. The church should look like whatever community it's in. And it should prioritize the needs of whatever community it's in. So if a church is in a predominantly black community, it should prioritize the needs of that community, the black community. But if the church is in a diverse community, it needs to adapt accordingly. All centralized on the gospel. Individual black Christians should, as a whole, be supportive of what the black community needs to uplift it because of the devastation that our ancestors experienced and the generational trauma that we're still experiencing today. But as a church, as an organization, as a representation of Christ, we have to address the problems that we are faced.
So you must be dealing with one of the 5 ills, and you must be constructing institutions to address those 5 things that we need. The black church isn't doing that. And one of the reasons why many black churches aren't doing it. And again, there's exceptions. Let me give you this. One of the reasons why they're not doing it is because in the year 2000, President George Bush, former President Bush, the son, he made it possible for churches to qualify for federal funding, faith-based initiative, FBI. And I would argue that the black church is metaphorically the new FBI, the new agent, because ever since George Bush made it possible for black churches to qualify for federal funds, they have not been on the front line of any fight. You can't name me a church in any city, in any state in this country that is at the forefront. I didn't say participating. I said leading, galvanizing, at the forefront to improve the public schools, at the forefront to change mass incarceration, at the forefront to deal with gentrification.
So how does he define at the forefront? I don't know. I think that's a unreasonably high bar. I know churches are providing housing for struggling individuals in the community. I know churches my church did a huge campaign to create free masks during the COVID. And COVID was predominantly killing black people. Is that the forefront? I mean, I think we created like 50,000 masks. Like, I was in there helping. I mean, they had a lot of women that were sewing these masks together, and I mean, it was thousands and thousands of masks, and then there was 3D printers. So, but is that the forefront? The black church in general, period, needs to do better. We need to become more relevant, not more affirming. And that's one of the issues that I think I might have to address a little later in this podcast, because that's why a lot of the world doesn't want the church to give our advice. They don't want to hear what we have to say, because we're the ones that are going to tell you that you shouldn't be having sex outside of marriage. That's why foster care is crazy. That's why 79% of the black community, 79% of black mothers giving birth are unmarried. I mean, we're going to tell you, okay, well, one of the things to fix that, stop having premarital sex. But y'all don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear that kind of stuff. Sometimes we want to be a part of the solution, but we get cast out because we're going to say things you don't like. We're going to express truths that you don't want to hear.
Every religious personality in history, I don't care if we deal with Moses, Jesus, Abraham, I don't care if we deal with Muhammad, I don't care if we come into contemporary times and deal with a Mahatma Gandhi, who was a racist, or Dr. King, or Malcolm X, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Honorable Marcus Garvey. Any leader who professed a faith, if he was sincere in his faith, automatically became politically relevant. Jesus, by virtue of his work, automatically came to the attention of the government. You couldn't keep him out of it. Yeah. Because if I'm fighting for people, I have to take on the enemies of my people. Dr. King automatically.
Well, he's wrong on the fact that, so if we compare what he's saying to Jesus, because he's the only spiritual leader that matters. Yo, like, I don't care about none of them other folk, but for Jesus, you know, Jesus came to set the world free from the real oppressor, which is sin, not any individual people. In the Old Testament, God frequently helped the Hebrews conquer oppressors. When you have the Philistines, all of David's conquests. I mean, literally, if you go through 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, if you go through Exodus with Egypt, God frequently freed the people from the earthly rulers that were oppressing them. And what did they do? They kept sinning. They kept going back. They kept betraying God. So the answer, which Jesus is the answer wasn't just to free the Hebrews from an earthly oppressor. The answer was to free the Hebrews and free the world from sin. Sin is the real oppressor. And that is why the main focus of the church has to be the gospel. Just because you're oppressed doesn't mean you are morally better than your oppressors. You're just not the one in power. You just didn't win. And God recognizes that, sees that all of our hearts are evil. Just because minorities are oppressed doesn't make us better in God's eyes. This is why frequently, Apostle Paul in Romans 13 is saying to follow the government. Jesus is saying to pay taxes. This is why Jesus himself didn't target and specifically prioritize overthrowing Rome, because he could have did that. He could have did that. He could have did that and made all Hebrews, all the Israelites kings. But that was already done, and it was insufficient.
Became relevant. Mahatma Gandhi in India automatically became relevant. There's no such thing as I'm a pious man, a pious woman. My life is dedicated to spreading the gospel of Christ and preparing my people for a relationship with the Almighty, but my life doesn't matter in the everyday lives of my own people. Show me where that exists in the Bible. Show me where that exists in the Quran. How can you be so in love with God that you're comfortable with your people living in hell?
Although suffering is painful and it sucks, it produces growth and endurance and hope. I mean, if we wanted to live in a world with no suffering, we shouldn't have sinned. Adam and Eve shouldn't have sinned, because that's the world that God created. That's what God put us in originally, was a world without sickness, without pain, without strife.
So many black churches is that they have already aligned themselves with a European-controlled income stream that doesn't have the black community as its priority. So if I'm a black church in Philadelphia, my church has already gotten a grant from my city councilman, my mayor, my governor, a grant from Bill Gates, a grant from the Rockefellers. I've already aligned myself with an agenda that's anti-African. Could I eliminate the relationship?
So, first contradiction. Dr. Martin Luther King worked with white folk. He was heavily involved with President Kennedy. Like, He was a politician. If you're going to be in politics, you have to have allies. And I think that's one of Dr. Umar Johnson's biggest issues is he has very few allies with a lot of money. Like, that was the wrong one.
I'm going to find out the truth. I guarantee you that.
He don't have any allies with money. And if you are coming with this black is right, white is wrong attitude, people who you could bring on your team, you could retain as a supporter, you could have marching with you, you could have existing in those meetings that you ain't gonna be in with the Rockefellers, with the heads of Google, the head of Elon Musk. Like, you could get to that point if you form relationships. So if you're going to say you're going to have a black church that has no connection with anybody non-black or anybody that has any connection with some bad thing to the black community, you want to basically create your own island. You want to create your own island. That's it. That's not how you get things done. And that's not how Dr. Martin Luther King got things done. That's what Malcolm X was trying to do. He didn't like how friendly he was with the white devils. I've been listening to the audiobook Bearing the Cross, which is a biography of the civil rights movement from the perspective of Dr. Martin Luther King. It's like a 58-hour book, and it's pretty good. And it pretty much documents the entire movement and how things worked out. Dr. King was constantly calling the president. He was constantly pushing him to establish certain reforms, establish the civil rights bill, all those things. He would not have been able to do that if he didn't have a relationship, if he didn't have relationships enough to get to that point. If you can't present a package that would be mutually beneficial to all parties involved, why would anybody want to work with you? The fact is, black people need non-black people in order to be successful. We do. And that's not the message of God, is to not work with other people. One of the issues in the black community is that we ain't got no money. We don't have generational wealth. Well, to get that, we're going to need the people who do.
I'm dependent on this money.
Let's get to
which is why I take
another
issue.
topic.
And it's a black church. How should that church restructure itself so that it could better serve the community?
3 things every church should
Good
have.
question.
Okay.
A bank. If not a bank outright, start a credit union. You can start a credit union with $250,000. Provide access to capital so black people can grow their own businesses. As you know, we're living at a time where we are witnessing the genocide and extinction of the 9-to-5, 40-hour job. There's going to be no jobs in America. You're going to have to make one. We're going to have to go into business for ourselves. The black bank needs to be empowering black people to start their own businesses. If you are not talking about economic empowerment, don't talk to me about God. Because the crime in our community...
He has a very, 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 very small God. Money is his God. He must not know that God created money. He must not know God created life. He must not know God knows the future and the past and the present. He must not know God was in the beginning and will be in the end. His God is no conqueror, no ruler, no life giver, no life taker. His concept of God is nothing. Puny God. Puny God. He has a puny God. God is not promising economic success. God is not promising money. That's the prosperity gospel, the false gospel. That is an evil gospel. That is a gospel of devils, gospel of demons. God is not promising you wealth and health. He's not. A lot of people who got money, it would be the worst thing that ever happened to them. Think about it. All the people who win the lottery, how do their lives end up? How do their families end up? Horrible. This is why the earthly rulers are not the problem. The problem is sin. The problem is the heart. And this is what Jesus is after. This is what God is after. Don't talk to you about God unless you're talking to me about economic success. People must not know how much of a trump card God is. Moses, when God told him to go free his people, and Moses said, I don't have what it takes to do that. I'm not a good speaker. They hated me. I was an oppressor of their people. I was a murderer. And God said to him, yo, I made all this. All this is my doing. I will help you. Go. You can't do it on your own. This is my plan, and you're just who I'm using to fulfill it. And I will fulfill it in you. So, anyway.
The devil's work is being carried out by unemployed black men. The devil's work is being carried out by unemployed black women. The devil's work is being carried out by unemployed black youth. So if you care about limiting the spread of evil, you have to economically empower people. Because contrary to popular belief, money is not the root of all evil. Not having no damn money is the root of all evil. When you walk out of here today, you're not scared of millionaires. You're worrying about little Mike, and Tay who ain't got no way to eat, and whether they're going to have to ski mask and pull a gun out on you because the black church isn't doing anything to give them an opportunity.
They're going to still do that. No. They're going to still do that. There are people I know that over and over and over, they're being helped. And over, it's a problem. So giving somebody money that would rob somebody or kill somebody for money, that's not no solution. That's not going to help. Just because you give them something right now and send them on their way. So you think somebody who is going to rob somebody for money is going to take an opportunity to get a job? You think they're going to take the opportunity to work for you? No, that's not what these people want. This heart posture that I'm willing to kill somebody for resources, for more money, like that's a sinful heart posture. That is an evil of this world. So instead of just putting a Band-Aid over the wound, we have to go to the source of the problem, which is sin.
To earn a decent, livable wage. Where's the economic empowerment? That's one.
So there is another problem. A decent, livable wage. What is that? A decent, livable wage, if that's what you give people, I promise you, those people will want more and more and more. Just like when God freed the Hebrews from slavery and took them to the land of milk and honey, before they got there, very shortly after they got freed, as soon as they didn't get something that they wanted, or as soon as they didn't understand what their current suffering was about, they served other gods. They betrayed God. The same thing is going to happen with us. It's the same thing. And I'm not saying the church shouldn't be trying to do this. No, I'm with you. I agree. The church should be providing resources for the community. But like, that's not the problem. And that should not be the number one priority of churches, which is what he's saying.
We're the only people who put religion in front of the race. God made you black. You chose Christianity. God chose you to be an African. The only thing you belong to that you cannot choose. There's Christians who stop being Christian every day. There's Muslims who stop being Muslim every day. There's Jehovah's Witnesses who stop being Jehovah's Witnesses every day. There's Methodists and Episcopalians who stop being Methodist and Episcopalian every day. But guess what you can never change?
Being black.
Being black. And who made you black? God. So what is more divine? The religion or the race? It's the race.
It's God. God made you black. God made the world. God created everything. God is the only one that's divine. The race is not divine. It's a part of your identity, your God-given identity, and there's beauty. And you were wonderfully and fearfully made. Specifically, you were woven together in your mother's womb. As a black person, as a white person, as a brown person, as an Asian person, as a Native American person, as everybody. We are all image bearers. That's the problem. And I think that is where the church detracted from being political activism, because it became more about political activism than about church. Because of that sentiment right there, the idea that race is divine, more divine than religion, than core values and beliefs and Jesus. If you are a black person before you're a follower of Jesus, your priorities are mixed up. When the black community goes away from Jesus, guess where you need to go? Or guess where you gonna be going?
I'm older than Jesus. I'm older than Muhammad. I'm older than Abraham. I'm older than Noah. When I existed, they wasn't even born.
And see, here's where, my hat goes off to this guy that's with him, because I can pause it and shut him up. I can shut him up and speak into these things where if you're in his presence, he has such a powerful delivery that he bulldozes anything. Before the foundations of the earth, Jesus was. Jesus was around before the beginning. In the beginning, there was the Word was with God, the Word was God. John 1:1, John 1:14, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Everything that was made through him, for him, by him. Jesus is God. So his concept of Jesus is small, but we knew that already.
I'm older than every person you can name in either one of them books, so why would you dare limit me to that? I respect them all, but don't you dare tell me that my spirituality begins with that. My people were worshiping God before Jesus' grandmother was born. How dare you limit me to a religion? I respect your right to do that. The point that I'm getting at, why are religions so chauvinistic and dictatorial with how people establish their relationship with supreme consciousness?
What? Why are churches so chauvinistic and dictatorial when people are so... Listen, please look past these $10 words. Now, listen, I say $10 words, all right? Everybody gets on me because I be using words with more than 3 syllables. But that right there, what he said, means nothing.
You understand me? Give people the right to build their relationship with God. And my issue with religion is sometimes it can become so constraining that it suffocates the spiritual life out of the person seeking the salvation.
Man.
Oh. Sorry. So my hat goes out to this brother. There's nothing he can do with Dr. Umar Johnson. I mean, the bulldozing, the virtue signaling, the alliteration, the rhyming, the cadence. I mean, it's everything everything Dr. Johnson is saying is so foundationally wrong right there. You cannot have a relationship with God without Jesus. There is only one way to God, and that is Jesus. There is no multiple. There is no choice. There is no multiple truths. There's one truth, and that's not chauvinistic or dictatorial. That's math. That's Jesus. Jesus said, John 14:6, I'm it. Nobody does anything without me. Let's see what he says.
Man, so you
again, the issue ain't religion.
Yeah.
But have some flexibility.
Man, let the man speak.
Every religious denomination was born of a what? A protest of the pre-existing standard way of worshiping God. Every denomination grew out of a what? Protest of the previous denomination. So if we know religion has this history of evolving because people said, this ain't the only way to do it. This ain't the only way to do it. This ain't the only way to do it. Why don't we allow a little bit of room up there? And if nothing else, allow a safe space for race and culture within the religion.
Race and culture should be in the religion. Yes. Like I said earlier, whatever the community makeup is of where you're at, you should prioritize that race and culture. And if you can't, somebody else needs to be leading your church. Yeah. We all have different giftings. Now, he is conflating the idea of denominational evolution, which I don't like, video coming soon, with the destruction of biblical truth. There are certain things, what type of music you play, what type of community outreach you do, those things are not necessarily dictated by the Bible. There was no church, I can't think of a church in the Bible that was trying to create a community program that the Apostle Paul was like, nah, you can't do that. If the Apostle Paul was rebuking a church, it was about sin. And that's where, if we're not careful, that's what can creep in to this nonsense he's talking about. Evolving, updating, giving people the opportunity to choose how they have a relationship with God. All that is progressive Christianity. They got enough churches like that, but they ain't church and they ain't Jesus. All right, people. I think that's good for a part one. There is another section that I'm going to react to where he talks about the whiteness of Jesus. I did my own video on that, so I think it will be very interesting. I think he's going to continuously say the same things, and I'm going to continue responding the same way. So hope you like that Pastor Reacts video. Let me know down below what you thought of this video, what you think of Dr. Umar Johnson's view on the black church. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'd love to dialogue with you down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe to the channel. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We need your help. I can't get there without you. Tell your mama, tell your daddy, tell your friends, tell your pets, whoever has a YouTube account, go on and tell them to hit that button. Hit that button right there. Okay? Let's do it. We can do it. Well, That's all I got for you. My name is Zachary Carroll, a.k.a. Pastor Z. Y'all be cool.